where I used cognitive information about assumptions learners had about the learning content and metacognitive information about their confidence to support learners working together on a multi-touch tabletop computer. And this is also an example I'm going to show you because it's my example, that's why I can talk about most about this one. What we did there was we had diets of learners. It was not 260 diets, it was 260 learners, so 130 diets of learners learning together about diabetes on a multi-touch tabletop computer. And some learners had information about the specific assumptions they had about certain aspects of the learning material visualized during the interaction process, and some didn't. And some had information about their metacognitive aspects, meaning their confidence in their own assumption, and some again didn't. And as already said, we had them learn on multi-touch tabletop computers where they could exchange information but also discuss and also work through the statements and so forth. Thank you. So what we found was what information we gave them was also basically the information they used to regulate their learning process. If we provided them with cognitive information, they regulated based on conflict. So they looked at conflicts first and foremost, and when they were done, they were done. And when we presented them with information about uncertainty, they looked at uncertain aspects first and foremost and worked through the material. If we didn't provide them with any information, no cognitive or metacognitive awareness information, they basically top left, bottom right, and stopped somewhere in the process when they were done with it. So they didn't really use any logical aspects to work through the material. They just went from top to bottom in reading order through the material. So I think I'll let this for the discussion, but I will just just read the questions. I want to know if there's any awareness support in your ideas or projects about fair play. What's the purpose? What type of awareness is it? Or is it intentional, or is it just information learners can use to gain some type of awareness even though it's not intended for this purpose? How is the information collected, transformed, and presented? And are there any ideas how this could be enhanced or used to help learners guide their learning processes? So this is basically just to wrap up. So awareness of the social context affects individual and collaborative learning, and it guides and enables social learning processes. Understanding strengths and weaknesses within a group is important to foster not only interaction but also mutual support, like help seeking, for example, and can also help itself to see where you stand and get information about other learning paths, for example, through observation. Observe what others are doing. Group awareness includes affective behavior and cognitive factors, so it can have a wide range of aspects. Obviously, it can have even more, but those are those where we would say are important for learning. But the formation can be challenging, and we always have to keep in mind that the main purpose of learning together is usually not to get to know the learning partner, but to get to know the learning content. So we have to be careful that it doesn't take too many cognitive resources away, so it should foster the learning process, not hinder it. And the awareness support can implicitly guide learning and interaction processes, and mostly if you provide learners with information, they will use the information some form or another if it's integrated within the learning material. If it's not, they probably will not use the information too much. So, thank you for listening, and any thoughts? Oh.
Thank you much for the presentation again, and as Lenka has already did, she has already thrown some questions at the beginning of the presentation. So So here it would be really great if any of you have some thoughts or answers to these questions. So you don't have to have clear answers, but it's more about the conversation. So
yeah. I just really would like to know what your thoughts are, but also what you maybe have in your project already, where you say there is some aspects of awareness information maybe in there.
I have maybe a different question, but maybe it's a connection to what you asked here. I think a really relevant topic in games is feedback. So you can always feedback somehow from the game or in a game situation. If I understood you right, then group awareness is a really relevant dimension or a concept for learning, process. So I'm wondering, how can we use the feedback in games to promote group awareness? Mostly feedback is regarded to achievements, let's say some performance indicators. But is there maybe more? Is there maybe more things possible to use game or the feedback system in game to increase the group awareness? Do you have any ideas about that?
So one thing, maybe just quickly before I forget, the other way around is obviously many group awareness tools have a feedback component at some point, because they not only present learners with information about their learning partners, but often put it in contrast with oneself or provide information about the same group. This is some kind of feedback, but we usually try to use information that is also accessible to the learner. So it's not in a usual sense of feedback where you provide additional information, for example, about how well this is going. But I would say that feedback that basically feeds back how you're doing without evaluating it too much is a form of awareness information. And with regard to your question, how you can use the feedback mechanisms in place, I think if progress feedback would be something, or process feedback about other learners could be accessible to a learner in a sense that I understand what other learners did to be successful, for example. This can be a form of awareness what other learners are doing to basically learn from this. But this is a bit detached from group awareness in a collaborative learning sense. It's more about the actual interaction. But maybe it might help to have information about what other learners, for example, achieved, so they could ask them questions if it's about interacting, and asked, how did you do this? This is what we try to do with the help-seeking aspects, to say, well, if I know who is successful, who knows something I might not, from whom I can gain information, who would also be willing to provide me with information, this might be something that might be interesting.
Just to, sorry, but really interesting idea, because it's actually in contrast to traditional education, where you can have a feedback and this is great, but you don't have any idea how the person who has, let's say, better grade, what they did. Just compare in the performance
outcome,
not in the process.
Yeah, I think focusing more on the processes that could maybe be interesting on this at this point. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, to shape the direction of the conversation a little bit, because Lenka has already presented many research-related content. If any of you have any education practice experience, this will be a nice time you can think about whether this group awareness can be applied to your education setting. It can be in the company or in the secondary school, university setting. Do you think it's necessary to foster it? Do you think it's applicable with the tools that Lenka has proposed here? So in this case, we can have more research transferred to the practice.
are 4 competencies in biology education in Germany that must be addressed by the teacher. Learning biology, you think about, I think, content knowledge. So, but there's also another main field of competence. It's called decision making. And decision making means reflecting one's attitudes and so on, and also attitudes of the groups. And many topics of biology education relate to, I think, socio-scientific issues such as climate change or pollution or something. And these might be also good topics for game-based approaches and addressing this. All pupils would have to reflect their attitudes towards these topics, not only towards the learning of any content, but also about their attitudes toward the distinct problem. So, what does it mean now? I think it means that we really have to address in game-based approaches things such as group awareness, because group awareness can be a crucial role in developing attitudes and so on.
So, Lenka, do you think your research and tools can be applied to the biology course?
I do think so. One thing I thought about is if it's about decision making, for example, one thing why I like collaborative learning so much is that when learners interact and explain content to each other or form arguments, is that they elaborate a lot on their own thinking. That's why I came from self-regulated learning and then basically ended up in collaborative learning, because they need to reflect, they need to make it very explicit what they think, and also